As the 19th century drew to a close, the size of merchant sailing ships tended towards a spectacular increase. By the 1860s, iron was supplanting wood with a consequent increase in size, but the introduction of mild steel in the 1880s and its use instead of iron for shipbuilding resulted in a more startling rise. Up to 1850, 1,000 tons was a large ship. The iron clippers of the 60s and 70s went up to 2,000 tons register, but after 1880 individual tonnages increased to 3,000 tons and more. This increase in tonnage involved an increase in length, which in turn entailed the addition of a fourth mast to the three masts of the full-rigged ship or the bark. This fourth mast, known as the jigger, might be square-rigged, in which case the rig was known as a four-masted ship. About 120 of these were built from 1853 to 1892, a tiny proportion of the total tonnage built. On the other hand, the four-masted bark rig became immensely popular in the 80s and 90s, square-rigged on the three forward masts and fore and aft rigged on the jigger. Most of these ships were by no means speedy clippers. They were bulk carriers designed to be handled with low running costs. From 1890, attempts were made to build even bigger sailing ships to increase their profitability, and several experiments were made with five-masted sailing ships. The five-masted bark France was built on the Clyde in 1890 for French owners. She was the largest sailing ship launched in Britain at that date, but she was soon exceeded by the R.C. Rickmers built following year for German owners. The R.C. Rickmers was fitted with an auxiliary engine, but she and the France were regarded as difficult to handle. To meet the challenge of the France, the Hamburg shipowner Laeisz ordered the five-masted bark Prussia, launched 1895. A successful ship, she survived until 1925. The French applied with the second France built at Bordeaux in 1911, 5,806 tons, and the largest sailing ship ever built, admittedly with an auxiliary engine. These, with the Danish Kirbenhound built at Laeisz in 1921, take up the tally of the five-masted bark. But there was only one five-masted ship, square-rigged on all five masts. She was the famous Preussen, the pride of Prussia. The one authoritative German book about this ship is entitled Königin der See, Queen of the Sea. Her tonnage of 5,081 does not make her the largest sailing ship ever built, but she was the largest full-rigged ship ever built and, so many think, the noblest sailing ship ever launched. Her owners were Reederei F. Laeisz of Hamburg, who owned the Prussia and many other fine ships with names beginning with the letter P, so that they were popularly known as the Flying P Line. They brought nitrate from Chile to Europe. Though they were primarily bulk carriers, so hard and efficiently were they driven, that the Laeisz ships achieved some of the most consistently fast passages ever made by commercial sail. Launched on May 7, 1902 by Tecklenburg at Geesmund, the Prussen could carry 8,000 tons of cargo. All her statistics are impressive. Overall, she measured 433 feet. Her sail area with its 48 sails measured out at 59,000 square feet. Her standing and running rigging together totaled 26 miles of wire and hemp. Her construction was immensely strong. Her rigging was designed to meet the enormous strains involved in driving such an enormous ship round Cape Horn and through some of the stormiest waters in the world. She carried a crew of 48 officers and men. Basil Lubbock, writing of the Prussia and the Prussen in the Nitrate Clippers, comments, "Perfectly built, perfectly rigged, and perfectly run, her Laeisz, Tecklenburg, their captains and their crews were rightly proud of these two great sailing ships, which were acknowledged by all sailormen to be the finest vessels relying on sail power only in the world." The English marine painter Reuben Chappell painted this great ship storming down channel with royals furled in a strong breeze. Besides her raised forecastle and quarterdeck, the Prussen had a big midships house extending right across the deck and containing crew accommodation with a chart house and steering wheel on top. Chappell's painting gives a graphic impression of the latent power and strength of this great ship. In all, the Prussen made 12 voyages to South America from Germany. On her maiden voyage, she ran out to Iquique in 65 days from start point, and in 1907 to 1908, she came home to Hamburg from Taltal in the same time, both extremely fast passages. In 1908, she went to New York to take a cargo of oil to Yokohama. On this passage, she covered over 3,000 miles in 11 days. The end of this majestic ship was ignoble and tragic. On the evening of Saturday, November 5, 1910, the Prussen was outward bound down channel on the 14th voyage of her career. With a mixed general cargo containing everything from cement to pianos, she was bound out for Valparaiso from Hamburg. Just before midnight, off Beachy Head, the London, Brighton, and South Coast Railways SS Brighton, bound from New Haven to Dieppe, miscalculated the speed of the great sailing ship. She tried to cross the Prussen's bow instead of going under her stern, and she was struck by the Prussen full on her port side. A funnel carried away. A mast snapped off at the deck. A lifeboat and cabins were stove in. Fortunately, the Prussen's clipper bow had only damaged the Brighton above the waterline, and her 90 passengers were unhurt. Unfortunately, the damage to the Prussen had been far more severe. She was badly holed forward, and her bowsprit had broken off and was banging against her side. In this state, she ran back to Dungeness Roads with her fore-compartment full of water and the pumps going. Her master signaled to Beachy Head, "Have been in collision, jibboom sprung, stems seriously damaged, wish to enter port or dock. I shall anchor if circumstance permit. Outside harbor, Dover." A violent gale began to blow, and with her headgear gone, the Prussen's foremast was dangerously weakened. As she let go her anchors near Dungeness, she had too much way on her, so that both cables parted, and in an increasing gale Captain Neeson attempted to stand out to sea. Two tugs attempted to tow her into Dover. Their lines parted and the great five-master struck the rocks under the high cliffs in Crab Bay, crashing down, and seas swept over the ship. More tugs came out, but they and the Dover lifeboat failed to establish communication with the wreck. Coast Guards eventually made contact with a rocket appliance. After 3 sleepless nights with the seas breaking over them, the crew eventually abandoned their ship. Their bravery and discipline had been outstanding. Before the Prussen was abandoned, Captain Neeson read his men a telegram from the Kaiser. "Deeply moved by the news of the disaster to the proud five-master Prussen, I desire to express to the owners my warmest sympathy." So the Queen of the Sea was abandoned. Most of her cargo was salved before a second gale broke her back. She sits in 6 meters of water at 51 degree 8.02 minutes north, 1 degree 22.17 minutes east. A few ribs of Prussen can be seen off Crab Bay at low spring tides.